Hi guys, Chris here with Super Savvy Travelers. Hey, today I wanted to look specifically at a cheap property in Tuscany and a more expensive property in Tuscany. And I wanted to look at them close together and decide which one has the more value, which one's the better deal, really. So I chose a couple of properties. One is, they're both actually on the same street in Acquaviva. Acquaviva, beautiful little town. We loved it there, which is why whenever I look at these things, I always go to Acquaviva first because we know the area, we know how beautiful it is. So let me kind of preface this. We've got two houses, both on the same street. One is an independent house, fully renovated, beautifully renovated. And the other is like half of that same size house. So we're going to look at, instead of looking at, overall price of it, we're going to look at price per square meter on these things because it's as close as I could find, in the same neighborhood. It's very hard to find, comps in Italy, because all of the houses are so different. They're all independently made. Both of these are in a beautiful area, just gorgeous. Like I said, they're on the same street. So we're gonna start with the cheap one. And this is on a street called Via delle Vecchie Mura. Now, let me just tell you about this muro thing. Mura is walls, and muro is one wall. That's what I got from Nelson. I was always confused. Mura, muro. Mura is plural. Muro is one. Somebody else told me one's inside walls, one's outside walls. I don't know about that. Let's just say walls. Okay, so this is the street of the old walls, and there's an old wall that's been renovated on that street, so it's not lying. So this one is 85,000 euros, great price, 120 square meters of living space, and then it also has a 5,000 square meter garden with some olive trees and things like that. It's, going through it, you can see that it's in pretty, like it has been habitable, but habitable to some people is not habitable to others. Certainly, I would renovate it before moving into it. You're going to have to do electrics, you have to do plumbing. It says, the listing says, structurally it's in good shape. They both say that. That's always something you want to get checked out with an architect or a geometra or an engineer. So we're just going to say everything is exactly as listed. There's no major structural stuff. So I'm going to give you some numbers here on that. Now we've got 120 square meters and we've got 85,000 is the asking price. And let's say you went in and you liked how everything was. You didn't have to move any structural walls or anything. You didn't have to redo the roof and everything else. So I was researching a little bit about renovation costs up in Tuscany. What do they cost? And it basically, of course, if you're in Montepulciano proper and you're in areas where there's a lot of demand and very little labor, the costs are going to change. But you can expect them to be between 1,000 to 3,000 euros per square meter. That's a huge range because when you start putting it together, it's a huge difference. Apartments tend to be a little bit cheaper to renovate. If you're doing a light renovation on an apartment, it can be anywhere from 400 to 600 square meters. If you're doing tile, painting, that kind of thing, maybe some light plumbing and whatever, but not huge plumbing things, moving your kitchen around, doing those kinds of things. That's what you can expect to pay, which is really not that bad. In Calabria, overall, renovations go for about 560 per square meter. It's a lot cheaper in Calabria. Now, if you had to get into a more comprehensive renovation, it's going to be between 700 and 1,500 per square meter, and that's for an apartment. Heavy or luxury renovations, you're talking between 1,900 to 3,000. So that's when you're talking about seismic retrofitting. You can pretty much expect that to be around the number of what you're looking at as far as a renovation goes. For normal people, if you go in, like the ideal scene is you go in, you do some light renovations, maybe put new windows, you put a new tile, you just basically refresh, I guess is what we should call it, a refresh. That's a lot less expensive. When you get into structural stuff, it adds up. Now, farmhouses and ruins, different story. When you're looking at farmhouses and ruins, you can expect to pay about 1,500 to 2,000 euros per square meter. Now, ruins, as you know, need a lot of structural work and everything done. So I would think when you get more toward the 3,000 figure, you're probably looking at super high-end tiles, you're probably looking at bespoke doors and blah, 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 blah. But for the normal guy, that's kind of what you're looking at. So if you look at these two properties together, the first one, it's a nice property, but it definitely needs, I would think, probably a little more than just cosmetic refresh. And technically it's a farmhouse, so you're looking at between 1,500 to 3,000 per square meter to renovate this place. So you have 120 square meters, which is the size of the house, the living area. times 1,500 euros per square meter, which comes out to 180,000. When you add 89,000 onto that, you end up at 269,000 euros. That's all in, but not with your closing costs and everything else. That's just the price of the property and the renovation costs, more or less. Now, when you look at it and you look at the other house that we're going to look at very closely, the difference is only a little more than 25,000 euros. So keep that in mind as we go through the rest of this video. Now, this next place that I saw, I was quite impressed with, by the way. And looking at it, it looks like it's right next door to the other one, because I kind of saw this one when I was driving around on Google Maps. And then I went, oh, wait a minute. And then I found this on Idealist, and I go, wait, that's the same car in the driveway. So this is next door. Anyway, this is a gorgeous property. It is an independent house that has good sized grounds. It doesn't say the size of the garden, but it's good sized. It's quite a compound, actually. And the house has been renovated. In fact, I am just lusting after the bathroom. It's beautiful. And so, you know, everything's kind of in good shape. It's got beautiful hardwood floors. It also has a little, outbuilding, which has a 1-bedroom, 1-bath apartment in it. And it's set up like a little cantina, but it's really quite lovely. And a big garage and a ripostiglio, which is a warehouse. Okay. So you've got a lot going on with this place, and it's all set up and people were living there, and it's really, really quite nice. Now, if you don't have anything to do to that one, like say you went in and you go, oh, I love it how it is, I don't want to rip out this or that or move this or blah, 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 do all of that stuff. You've got a 3,000 square meter gorgeous house on beautiful grounds, and it looks to be gated and everything else. And you're avoiding the costs of renovation, you're avoiding the uncertainties of renovation, because we have seen, no matter how careful you are, no matter how good your geometra or your architect or engineer, some things are not visible until you start taking stuff apart. And we've seen that in a couple of our renovations. Most of the time we're pretty spot on, but this one, you start taking stuff apart and you're like, ooh, okay, it's a little more than what we thought. So that does happen. So there are uncertainties with a renovation. The dust, I would pay tons of money to avoid the dust and the allergies and everything that come along with it, the time, the stress, everything. Renovations on the best of times are stressful, and there's a lot of things that come up, and it's always on your mind, and if you're trying to do other things, but doing it in Italy, especially if you're back in the United States waiting for your renovations to be done, it can be very, very difficult. So in this case, going through this house and everything's new, I would have to say that this is the better value. It's twice the size, it's beautiful, it's move-in ready, and there's not all the stress and worry about the renovation. But that kind of gives you an idea of what you're looking at in terms of renovations in Tuscany. In Calabria, it's not that big a deal, but in Tuscany, it can cost. There you go, guys. Hope this helps.